Hello, and welcome to HOI4 Let's Play series. This is Northstar. Hope you're well, taking care of each other and being kind to yourselves. For those new to my channel, welcome. Returning viewers, welcome back. You can check out my YouTube channel page, this, and all my previous videos in this series, organized from oldest newest, my YouTube playlist for this. I have over 56, or I have 56 right now, but it's going to be more soon. Playlists there, lots of games, lots of videos, over 1,200. Check it out, lots to discover, lots to enjoy. Cuba's improving relations with Spain. Interesting. Of the Northern International. Wonder if the AI is programmed as some kind of Hispanic solidarity thing. So you notice I'm looking here at Cuba because, you know, the U.S. is cutting them off from resources and trying to do regime change in our own world. I was thinking about it, watched a video on it. A little more about the history. Historically, Cuba was, a Spanish colony. Then there was the Spanish-American War. Theodore Roosevelt, who some people think he came in as an imperialist to exploit the country. I'll give Teddy Roosevelt a little more credit than that, because he also took on the robber barons and the trusts in the United States and was very aggressive about that. He may have actually had the best intentions with San Juan Hill and all that, Rough Riders, but there were people in his administration who were already salivating over how they could divide up Cuba for their own personal interests, that's for sure. People like Taft, who was Theodore Roosevelt's vice president and wildly corrupt. Fun little bit, after Taft took over the Republican Party nomination, which at the time, the Republicans were the left-wing party, be like Democrats today. After he basically stole the nomination, not really stole it, is clearly as Truman stole in 1944 party convention for the Democrats, for vice president from Henry Agud Wallace, who was FDR's vice president from 40 to 44, was to the left of FDR, was the clear favorite of the American people. This is somewhat different. Anyways, so people like Taft, Harding, Coolidge turned Cuba into a neocolonial puppet state with increasing exploitation of the working class. But it got really bad when there was some pushback, there was, popular discontent, and it looked like through using elections, people were going to get better situation for themselves in Cuba. So Batista, who is a U.S. ally of the oligarchs in the United States and also worked with the mafia to bully and intimidate people in Cuba, when he was going to lose an election of the country, he instead did a military coup, took over, became dictator of Cuba. He horrendously oppressed people after he instituted basically a fascist regime in Cuba, and this led to discontent, which led to a communist revolution. Hence, you get Castro. The elites fled Havana to Miami, and then they're like, "Ooh, well, there's a naval base, or not? Yeah, Miami's here. Sorry, otherwise that's Tampa or something. Yeah, there's a naval base in Miami. They fled to Miami in large numbers." And those evil communists, and there was some revenge killing in Cuba of people who were, quote, Batista loyalists, but they weren't like, there was an Al Jazeera news thing on this, but they're biased against socialism because they're an Islamist monarchy, Qatar, that funds them in the Middle East. So while they're anti-imperialism, anti-US, they're more of the non-aligned fascist variant of that. They do not like communists very much. They leave out key details. The loyalists who were killed were largely police, military, and mafia thugs who had engaged in rape, torture, murder across Cuba to bully and intimidate dissidents. So they would abduct the wives of dissidents and the R word. They would disappear people in the middle of the night, kill them. All this kind of typical fascist stuff that Eisenhower condoned. Not as great a guy as it's sometimes helpful to think of the positive things he did, but he set the U.S. after Truman on the path of imperialism and empire and global domination. That was really Truman who was worse with this. Truman was suspected of being a Ku Klux Klan member and very vile. Anyways, it was, but the the extrajudicial killings of people, even though people in the communities who were doing the killings, they usually knew who the mafia enforcer who had been torturing people and disappearing night was. So they just went for the person and killed them, but that was not right. They still should have gotten a trial, but the U.S. is a little hypocritical in condemning it. Although the U.S. Congress did actually put an arms embargo on Batista when he was in power because it was shocking the level of crimes against humanity he was committing, to the point where there was actually a lot of opposition against him in the United States until the communists took over, and then suddenly, oh no, communism. It just shows how blind Americans are, these sort of things. Anyways, I'm looking at Cuba, partly because I think I may try and, I do have neutral foreign policy, which is make harder. I was going to say send agents to boost ideology there eventually as a launch point to, United States, but neutral foreign policy will at least make certain that they don't join the U.S. faction just randomly. But I maybe I'll have to do the Commonwealth of Bahamas or the Dominican Republic, overthrow this fascist regime under Trujillo. The new government would still have these national spirit bonuses to recruitable population factor and such. They're sitting at, they went mass assaults at 13% recruitable population at peace already, and they could actually get that up to 18 if they went service requirement. Wow, it's a lot of, maybe I should focus on the Dominican Republic instead. Which had a very oppressive fascist government around this time that's historically accurate for it to be fascist, starting in 36 and the game begins. Yeah, maybe I'll go for Trujillo, but I don't know. If I can get a base in the Caribbean, then start invading, flipping countries, trying to get around U.S. guarantees by, justifying countries I'm not going to mess with. The only problem with that is that Nueva Chichen Itza, it's a nation. Interesting. The only problem with that is if I don't wipe them very quickly, within a month, they could join the U.S. faction. But if I can set up a base of operations, and the only way I'm gonna ever be able to take the U.S. likely is a surprise attack that sweeps through Florida and up into Atlanta. I'll need tanks by that point. There's no way I can beat them in a prolonged war of attrition. So surprise attack from the Caribbean, maybe it's the thought. Probably. We'll see how things happen. I'll probably get pulled into a war before I want it or something. Anyhow, gotta come up with a strategy. I can't just, if this becomes impossible or I lose horribly, I could try switching to Turkey, but if the world situation is not going to make that amenable, I'll probably go to the day zero save for this and try playing as Denmark from the very beginning. Have them take the loyalist path with the Norwegian People's Republic. They can help them win their war. Take out Sweden and Finland before they could join the U.S. faction. Unite the Nordics, basically. I don't think the NPR can create a faction, can they? It'd be under their political branch. Send the king back. Workers and farmers rise. Crush Hitler, crush Stalin. Reawaken the permanent revolution. Defend Finland. Yeah, no. I don't think. So, if they can't create a faction, Denmark can't. How to create the faction, and that's interesting. I think the devs overlooked this. There's they're too Sweden centric, honestly, because Sweden can easily create the Nordic People's Union. Northern People's Union, but Norway and Denmark have a hard time, even if they can unite all the countries. Say puppet or ideology force them. Interesting. Well, probably some little minor nation form a faction with them at that point, and then take over the faction, and yeah, that could be used to create the Northern People's Union. Now, well, it'll be interesting to try. Some German kingdom, maybe. Flip one Marxist with spies. Faction up with them. The communist version of the alliance is nice because you get a spirit that gives you 350 weekly manpower. It's definitely the strongest of the focuses, but in order to run that focus, you have to be faction leader. And you have to have one of these countries allied. And the only one that can actually create a faction themselves are, well, actually Finland or Sweden. The ones that can. So, yeah. Anyways, I'm running the 5-year plan. I just started extensive conscription. I mean, this is rock standard stuff for preparing for war, but I'm going to have to do a longer build-up. I just did it while I was able to, by change of ministers, briefly be in low military spending because it costs less political power to raise conscription then. Probably stay extensive for a long time because service requirement comes with a debuff to industrial production, which would stack with the debuffs from in terms of efficiency from high welfare spending. I'm going to be speaking out against military rearmament, banning the opposition's political uniforms eventually. But this would move things to 15%, this would be 25%, and replace this guy with intelligence chief 35%, with opposition political uniforms, and shift it back out of medium welfare to low. So I still need to, what else can I do that shifts it further towards welfare? There's supposed to be an expand the welfare system power thing, but maybe that was removed because it was considered too powerful. It would lower your consumer goods factor 10%. It would cost a lot of put-up power for what's a very small number of factories. But the devs may have gotten rid of it. I don't know. Let's see. A crash? Are you kidding me? Alright, darn it. Give me a sec, guys. Yeah, so there. I don't know what happened, folks, on YouTube, but I got a crash. I was trying to find what balanced welfare and warfare stuff I had to work with. Every man is scared in his first battle. If he says he's not, he's a liar. George's pen. That's true. Alright, so yeah, I don't know if that balance of power decision is still around, but the monthly pop growth from the welfare spending is good. It takes a very long time for that to matter, but I'm going to have to do a pretty long build-up to be able to deal with the United States, even if I do a surprise attack. I need a large military to hold the line in a lot of places. I'm going to need allies, obviously. Protect against counterattacks. I'm going to need a strong offensive force that can roll up through Florida or something. And I'm going to need from Cuba. And I'm going to need forces to fill in behind them and hold the ground that I just take. You know, infantry are the only force that can take and hold a piece of land, as the saying goes. Yeah, you'll hear me say stuff like that occasionally. Because I was an Army ROTC once upon a time, so I do have a little understand military strategy. And my military science professors acknowledged I had a keen mind and very tactically talented. It might have been never clear if the person was saying they thought I was a genius or a military genius, but they thought if I could ever learn better leadership skills, I could be really talented. Hmm. Oh well. Yeah, I'm just gonna have to use the balance of power decisions. It seems like talented military officers today. Once upon a time, I even wanted to go to West Point, but that's high school. But my mother was not supportive of that and made it so, I was high school. She forbade me working when I was high school. At that age, your parents have a lot of control over you. She wanted me to study all the time, and she wasn't gonna. You need a congressperson's recommendation. She wasn't gonna take me to visit my congressperson, which is extremely hard to do. Partly because the United States does not have enough Congress people. What would have actually been the one of the first two amendments in the Bill of Rights that didn't pass through a technicality. So I got 10. And the only one that's never become law, because the other one that didn't pass through a technicality, through like a Connecticut senator who wasn't present, became what was it, the 27th Amendment. Later, it was revived in the 90s. That had to do with congressperson's pay, but the one that we didn't get, we really would have had to do with congressional apportionment. That's a technical word for would have ensured the size of Congress grew with the population. So we would have one congressperson per 30,000 Americans instead of, in some cases, one per 1 million in some states that don't quite, make it to having another congressperson. Which, when 1 million people have to share a congressperson, it's really hard to, get that West Point recommendation. Whereas if it was one per 30,000 or one per 50,000, I think, yeah, the amendment would have fixed it to one per 30,000 as the population grew. We went up to one per 40 and one per 50. It was supposed to just stay at one per 50. People were like, oh, we should continue this trend of like exponential scaling or something. No. The idea was just, not destabilize the country too much by growing when the country was very young, but one per 50,000 is still a lot of people per congressperson, and that's, the size of a very large town or small city, to ensure that at least each city has its own congressperson. That would have made it trivially easy to get that West Point recommendation, for instance. Of course, it's probably good I didn't end up in the military. Would have been part of a system of imperialism, which I would have naively believed was the good thing at the time, because the system didn't really show its true colors until, Trump, really. It became really obvious, though I was disillusioned with it well before then. By the time I learned about Obama's illegal drone strikes and stuff, I was starting to see the system was much, much, much nastier than pretended to be. Anyways. Let's see, I've got this. Destroyer, almost done. Gonna shift stuff around so I don't overflow like 5 dockyards in this one destroyer, potentially. Yeah, like at least 3 would have gone to waste. All 5 would have, actually. Focus. Kind of doing a serial production of destroyers here for a little bit while I can focus on it. But yeah. Batista, absolute freaking monster. And even, at the time, this isn't something like, oh, he was a product of his time, or that's a modern view. No, at the time, even the U.S. Congress acknowledged he was a monster. And there was real pushback. Of course, the U.S. Congress also realized the Contras were horrendous monsters and tried to forbid Reagan from funding them. And he proceeded to go and do it anyways. Actually, I might want to get some rifles out to the men in the field. Turn a few more infantry too into XP. should just finish that destroyer. Spent the manpower on it. Now I can add this, and this be a partial manpower. It won't prevent me from deploying the destroyer. Alright. That's a lot of weapons in reserve. These are all infantry too. This is why I'm like, I can afford to grind a few more into Army XP. I'm saying most of the Soviets. So they can give the US a bloody nose and we don't end up in a unipolar world too much. I'd expect the Americans to roll over the Central Powers, including the Soviets eventually anyways here. But, let's see. Should wait until this delivery happens and then I can give Austria-Hungary some more stuff. You know what? Maybe I should give Hungary some stuff. They have more available manpower. They're under scraping the barrel, but they're not out of manpower the way Austria-Hungary is with scraping the barrel. It's probably because of, where is it? Hungarian Academy of Sciences. Hungarian agricultural tradition. Now that actually reduces recruitable population factor. God, I really should have done the oil field exploitation. The AI always does the tradition. Stupid. Freaking. Anyways, they have like 250,000 men unequipped. This is enough to equip 330,000, so yeah, okay. Maybe not this. Let's give them 12,000 rifles. And there's said to be a land route to them, but not to the Austrians, I think. Give them some of the newer rifles too. Assault rifles. Some of these anti-aircraft guns and anti-tank guns that are lying around. A couple dozen advanced artillery pieces to Hungary. This is all to, if possible, force the US to all adults serve. It'll weaken their industry, and they usually the AI won't reduce conscription laws, even once things are better. So in the I'm assuming the US will still win, but in the post-war recovery, they won't build as much military hardware. In our own historical, the US did decrease its military spending and reduce conscription after World War II some, although it still maintained a very high level because of the Cold War. Something that Truman foisted us into, and Eisenhower actually gave speeches against it, but then proceeded to continue spending very heavily. He's too blinded by his anti-communism. Alright. He gave a speech about how every bomber produced, every rifle, every tank, it was theft from those who were hungry or not fed, stuff like that. He should have lived by his principles, Eisenhower, and, not poured infinite money into the military-industrial complex. Of course, maybe he wasn't ever principled. He was just lying, speaking about what he knew the truth was, knowing full well that it wasn't going to actually change anything. Sooner or later, these guys will probably... Joseph Friedrich Matez is current leader. Hopefully they'll flip eventually, maybe before 1948, but even if the elections should cause them to flip communist. 6 days in Thuringen, and I'll flip them too. So increase my ability to access resources. In the case of Thuringen, I'll destabilize them before they flip, reducing their effectiveness in the US. Block. Yeah. It's very late to be getting extensive conscription, obviously, but Denmark spent all its political power as a puppet trying to get free as quick as possible, and they need to do it fairly quick. If I hadn't been playing Syria and prop up the NPR, they would have... Well, actually, if I hadn't been doing that, they would have never made it on time. They would have wasted political power gaining autonomy, only to just switch and become a puppet of the Sultanians and have to do it all over again. Guess they prayed and hoped for a miracle, like forces from Syria on the other side of the world coming to the aid of the Norwegians to delay their surrender. Alright, the stronger and more wide-reaching your intel network, the more effective boosting ideology is. That's why I waited till 100%. I think it's strength, definitely coverage. It might not actually strength. The network might not matter. So it's possible. Well, but if the spies capture something, they'll start decaying. That'll definitely give me time to rescue them without having to immediately pull their agents or something. I don't know. Why is there no intel network in Farah? For whatever reason, the intel network refuses to penetrate into this state. But to have advanced rocket artillery, start producing that. Spies are busy creating potential allies. Need all the operatives they can get. Hence the intelligence officer, which get me to 4 spies. Denmark gets an unusually large number of spies, +2 from political edicts. So I already have 3, and then I'll get 4 with intelligence chief, and then eventually 5 from expand the agency. And then if I can get a faction, I can easily get 6 or 7 from being a spy master and having my, allies. The more spies I have, the quicker I can go around flipping countries or even just infiltrating their civilian administrations for political power. I gave myself a little political power and swapped to Denmark to repair some of the damage of AI mismanagement. I definitely don't want to... Not really playing the game if you're just giving yourself everything. Fixing all the AI's mistakes. Alright. Working on the HDMS Haviland. Oh yeah, sometimes the naming of ships can change when your ideology changes. I wonder if the older ones used HDMS. Yes, they did. I wonder what the acronym stands for. If I remember correctly, Germany, if they flipped, communist it used the acronym that the East German Navy used. That was before they got their own focus to it. They go communist. I think it was based on the old way you normally saw communist Germany. Other players running the Thalmann advisor was sometimes, historic World War II in East Germany forming. So that's why it probably did it that way. Pretty sure it's different now. Oh, these aircraft. Get the casts. More air defense than the fighters, because I don't want them disrupted in their bombing missions. Fighters can't obviously be disrupted in air superiority, because the role of the cast is more important anyways. You know, to bomb enemy divisions. Though it's casts are not actually just, the fighters are just as expensive as the casts in terms of planes are. But anyways, April 2nd, as the story finishes. About the tech here. Alright, advanced rocket artillery. Boom, ba-doom. I definitely need to produce that. I have too many factories on support equipment. I can donate it to other nations. It never goes obsolete. It's probably... it's excessive. Should at least reduce it by 1. This is actually going to be a brand new line, because there's no way to just strip off one factory annoyingly. Because if it's low efficiency, it'll be a low resource priority. Maybe not that low, since it also grows slower when it's low in resources. Should probably just order it by its importance up there. Right. I was also gonna potentially convert. Probably just this basic nav. Doesn't let me convert it to anything other than other aircraft. Gah. Let's make convert cast and then interesting. Guess I'll have to delete factor, which I don't really want to do. Okay. You say later need to convert just one of these rocket artillery to something else. Can have at least a couple lines. What it might go like 2 and 1 on these, especially 3.88 a month. That's very. All right. So I'll end up having to just delete the nav line. Oh hush! You don't make a template for something before you actually have any stockpile. That's usually dumb. I mean, you can create a template and not make anyone do it. See, these guys have some artillery to give them heart attack. And this, it's still not that much. So that tanks don't completely roll over them. Of course, tanks still have usually less than 9% hardness, so the soft attack is not completely ineffective either. Do the heavy. This is a little too big. I don't like how many infantry battalions there are in this. to create a rocket heavy imp. And this is going to have one less infantry, one more line artillery. Because I do not like the number of, I need to go for smaller divisions. This actually has more combat with before. But fewer men. That means a higher percentage of your manpower and support division. Support, and means that, for each guy makes more efficient use of the work that the infantry provide. Anyways, I need all the self-attack I can get. I need highly capable infantry, so. Alright. But I do have a template, so I won't get that stupid notice again, because I will eventually produce these. Later, I'll probably just trim off 2 infantry, and it'll be like a 6 infantry battalion, 3 artillery. Something like this. How much would it take to be considered an artillery battalion? Maybe it's because these aren't all the same sort. Yeah, that's why. Well, I won't go that heavy on artillery, but yeah, I'll probably eventually reduce it to a 21 with 6 and 3. Infantry may be very cost-effective in terms of equipment, but when you're very limited manpower because you're a tiny nation, you're going to have to take up the big boys. You're going to have to produce the industrial equipment to heavily arm your men, and even then, you're still going to have trouble. I mean, small. What can the weak do against the... What can the small do against the mighty? What can the weak do against the strong? Or something like that. There's this old Roman saying. Okay, so this will go into heavy bombs, and this, I guess, into the torpedo launchers, so I can queue up the new destroyers soon enough. There's nav stuff for now. April 2nd, April 6th. Boom. Yep. So exactly 6 to complete it. Next day. Go into that next destroyer, the Laxon, and then the Glenton. Maybe I'll wait a little longer to start the next artillery line. So this is complete with bunch overflow. Yep. For 12th. 14 days till full intel on bull. 6 in this. Anyone in the chat? No. Any lurkers? Nope. I was lucky to get that raid that one time.